Me, 26 female, and my fiance, 32 male, have been engaged for 5 months now, and we're getting married in October. Ever since we got engaged, my fiance and I decided to start saving up for our wedding, so we opened a joint bank account. We have a good sum of money. My fiance does not put as much money as I do because he stopped working a month after we opened the account, and it's just me saving up for now. My fiance's mom is an absolute awful person. She always tries to belittle me and says offensive stuff to me, but I just ignore her to keep the peace. I heard that my mother-in-law was remodeling her kitchen and that her 2 daughters contributed, and she started calling my fiance to pay his share. He told her he didn't have the money, and the topic was dropped. Yesterday, I went to the bank and I found out that my fiance took $3,000 from our joint account without telling me. At first I thought it was a mistake, but the money was indeed taken by him. I was confused, but he had a habit of taking money from me so he could buy his mom a birthday present, pay to fix her car, and would say he'll give it back. He never did, but I thought since we're now as one, I can't possibly ask him to return the money. Plus, it wasn't that much. I went home and confronted him about the $3,000. First, he apologized and said that he was planning on telling me earlier, but his mom was pressuring him and he thought I'd say no if he asked for money. I got so mad at him for this and started yelling at him asking how he could do this and that now we don't have enough money for the wedding. His tone changed, saying that since I make more than what we need, then he saw nothing wrong with helping his family. My job pays a little above average, but that doesn't mean I don't work hard for it. He basically got defensive. I was so angry I left the apartment, literally crying after we argued for some time. His mom called, and it turned out he lied to his family that the money was his since it was joint account. She lashed out at me and said that I was trying to isolate him from his family and yelling at him for his contribution. I was stunned. I blocked her immediately, and I'm no longer responding to his calls trying to say that he loves me and that it is worth billions, saying he'll pay me back when he gets a job, but it doesn't seem likely. Not the a-hole. This won't change, and I'd advise you to give your future a long, hard contemplation to see if this is the future you want. Not the a-hole. Do you really want to marry into this? Your fiance doesn't seem to respect you enough to at least discuss it with you. At least half of that money is yours, so it's theft. If it was me, I'd be long gone. Not the a-hole. It cost you $3,000 to figure out that your fiance is dishonest and deceitful. Quite frankly, that's a lot cheaper than divorce. Don't ignore this gigantic red flag. There will be far more of this if you marry him. My ex and I started dating at 16 and were together about 20 years in total. He was a good provider for years and was a great dad to our son. Soon after the birth of our second child, he started hanging out after work and drinking, which turned into infidelity and substance misuse. I was always sick and crying. He said it was just the area we lived in and his friends, and that we needed to move to a better area so he could go back to being himself. We moved from the city to a rural area, and he switched jobs. At first it was great, but then he started to hang out with his old buddies and got deeper into substance issues. He was starting to be completely unreliable, even going AWOL for days at a time. I was worried sick all the time. Then I found out he had been skipping the mortgage payments, and I freaked out, got a job, and put the youngest in daycare so that I could make sure we had a roof over our head. He said this hurt his ego, like he wasn't a good provider, but I didn't know what else to do. One day we came home and he was unresponsive on the sofa, and his face was pale. I thought he was dead. I freaked out and called 911. They gave him Narcan and took him to detox. He called from detox the next day saying, "Come get him," and I refused. I said he wasn't coming home until he got clean. He was upset, but got clean, and did a 30-day residential program. He called home every day. I got the kids therapy. It was really upsetting to them to come home to their dad like that. He completed the 30-day program and was set to go to a longer-term program. Weeks later, I hadn't heard anything. Then one day he called from a new number and asked if I could help get him a 3-bedroom apartment since I was good at finding resources for people. I was stunned. He said he didn't like being forced to go to a program and that he met someone there and they're looking for an apartment so she can get custody of her kids. I was shocked. He said, "You wouldn't let me come home unless I met your demands, so I found someone else who will take me as I am." I said that hurts, and he said he didn't understand why, since if I cared, I would have let him come home. I cried for an hour. It was literally my breaking point. I decided I was done. I filed for divorce. I told the judge I didn't want anything other than the divorce, but since he didn't show up, the judge granted me full custody and put a child support order on him. I felt so upset and defeated, and literally everything reminded me of him. Every location, store, street, building, etc. So I picked up and moved several states away to make a fresh start. When he finally found out, he was furious and cried, and said how could I take his babies away from him and move without asking him. He said he could sue me for leaving the state, but he won't. I have so many mixed feelings and emotions, I literally can't even talk to him on the phone without bursting into tears. Am I the a-hole for moving out of state without asking him? Not the a-hole. I'm sorry for what his problems have cost your family. He surrendered his moral right to weigh in on the decision when he chose to abandon you and the kids, and probably surrendered his legal right when he failed to show up in court. I hope you and the kids thrive in your new life. Not the a-hole. Was your ex concerned about your children when he asked for you to help finding him and his new girlfriend an apartment for her children? Now, could you have gotten court permission to move as a precaution? Sure, but if he was that concerned, he probably should have been more involved when it was time to discuss custody. His actions sound like he's more concerned with his new girlfriend's children than his own. It's not like you're denying him visitation. He just has to make an effort to see his children. You deserve a fresh start. You have custody of the children. You don't need permission to move from your ex. This doesn't seem like a case where you should be hiding your location from him. He's been an irresponsible a-hole, but he's not a threat to you and the kids if he knows where you live. But going out of your way to try to track him down to let him know where you were moving to also wasn't necessary. Not the a-hole. My boyfriend, 21 male, and I, 22 female, have been together over 2 years and lived together for 1.5 years. I found out I was pregnant in February of this year, but miscarried soon after. When I told my boyfriend, he freaked out and had a panic attack. He isn't ready to have a child, and I understand that, but he kind of made it all about him. He sulked in his room and berated me about when I was going to terminate. I kept saying I didn't know, and I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to terminate. My answer caused him to be more rude and passive-aggressive towards me, which put a lot of stress on me. Part of me thinks this is why I lost the baby. This brings us to today. My boyfriend turns 21. I planned dinner at our favorite spot and set up a night out this Friday with his friends. I'm usually better at planning stuff, but I've been really stressed out lately. This is partially why I think I'm the a-hole, as I always plan an elaborate celebration for his B-day and put a ton of effort into his presents. But I graduated college last weekend, hosted a party, and it was Mother's Day, so I had a lot going on. Anyway, stress usually makes my period late by a week or so and eliminates all of my menstrual symptoms. Yesterday, my boyfriend and I drove up to his family to celebrate his birthday. On the drive up, I realized my period was late, and my boyfriend started stressing out. I assured him it was likely stress that affected my cycle, and I haven't experienced any symptoms like last time. He relaxed and we had a good time at his family's party. When I woke up this morning, I took a test, and it was positive. I decided to avoid telling my boyfriend, as it would cause him anxiety, and I wanted him to enjoy his day. I laid back in bed and he woke up to go to the shower. I completely forgot to hide the test sitting on the counter. He comes back out asking if I'm pregnant, and I said yes. Immediately shuts down. I told him not to worry, it may be a false positive and enjoy today. He goes quiet the rest of the morning. Also, I'm a nanny for my boyfriend's niece. I went to go pick her up, and when I came back, my boyfriend was still in bed. I ask if I should make an appointment at a clinic. He says yes, and I make one for the next hour. The clinic confirms the pregnancy. I tell him, and like last time, he starts berating me, asking when I'm going to terminate. I tell him, I don't know, I just found out, please stop asking me. As we're driving home, his niece starts crying, and he yells, "Stop crying, duck!" I was shocked and shoot him out while I comforted her. When we get home, he goes straight to bed and avoids me. I feel bad that he found out that I'm pregnant the day of his birthday, and that I didn't plan more of a celebration, so he had to chill at home during the day. I didn't want him to find out today, but I made a mistake. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Info. I have the arm implant, however, it expired in January. The previous clinic did not inform me of this, and yes, I asked how it was possible. They gave me the spiel that no form of birth control is 100% preventative. This clinic informed me the implant was ineffective. Everyone sucks here. So after going through this less than 4 months ago, neither of you thought to invest in condoms? Everyone sucks here. I know you keep saying that your implant expired and the clinic didn't tell you, but honestly, it's so irresponsible not to know when your implant expires. And since you knew it had failed, both of you should have figured out a plan to keep it from happening again, like adding condoms. No method is foolproof, but there was a clear reason to reevaluate the method you were using. Your boyfriend's response sucked equally both times. He's not someone who can be a reliable partner during stressful times. You've gone through this twice. Why are you sticking around to see how he responds the next time something, not necessarily a pregnancy, stressful comes around? Girl, if I had the implant and got pregnant, I would be at the doctor's trying to figure out what the duck happened the first time. Yes, no birth control is 100% effective, but after it fails, you usually try to figure out why, not wait for another oopsie. Not the a-hole, but please be more careful. It takes two to tango, but at the end of the day, women always get the crap end of things. Before going to college, I asked my mom to help with tuition, and I'd find my own way for accommodation and general money. She said no, and that I should just work harder. Fine. I got 2 jobs and managed to earn a scholarship in my second year. For my graduation, I had to pay for my own party because she said she wouldn't. When I got offered a job across the country, I asked her to assist me with just the first month's rent. and I'd pay her back when I got paid. She said she couldn't, and I had to let the job go, despite it literally being a golden turkey given to me on a silver plate. But whatever, I managed to get another job closer after 6 months of unemployment. All this time, she had a savings account with money she'd been saving and what my late stepdad left her. There's a lot of money in there, and it wouldn't have rendered her destitute to have helped me in at least one of these occasions. But it's her money, and I'm really not an entitled kid, which is why I never brought it up, even though I've always known about the account and always let it go after she said no. She used to say it's for her retirement, and I completely respect that. She's been dating Dave for about 5 years now, and recently, Dave got in trouble with the law and needed bail money. A lot of money. 6 figures. And my mom paid it. Not only that, but she's going to pay for his lawyer. All from the savings account. When I heard this, I got upset, because what in the flying duck? She didn't even consider helping me out, but didn't waste a second hopping to the bank for her troublesome boyfriend. I told her she was a crappy mom and unsupportive. Then we had a back and forth where she called me ungrateful and entitled. So am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. It's going to be glorious when you can tell her, "I told you so," smugly, when she realizes she wasted all her money on that flea bag. Even more so down the road when she inevitably comes to you with her handout. Tell her she should have just worked harder, and she'll need to get a job if she needs money that badly. Not the a-hole. I firmly believe that when you have a child, you are financially tied to that person for life, not just until they turn 18. It would be one thing if your mom was actually saving that money for retirement, but she's made it clear that she wasn't. She was saving it for some deadbeat loser who, allegedly, did something so awful his bail was in the 6 figures. You're not entitled for asking for help from your mom. Your mom is the a-hole for repeatedly refusing to help her child with very reasonable expenses and then turning around and throwing it away for some guy. Might be time to distance yourself from this person who has failed you time and again and clearly does not have your best interest at heart. You'll probably hear from her again when she needs money for a nursing home, and then it'll be your turn to tell her she should have worked harder and she sounds entitled. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry that your mother is one of those people who put a love interest above their children. It is true that it is her money, and she is entitled to do with it what she wants. But wasting it instead of using it as an opportunity to help her child is such a shame. With the way this boyfriend of hers is spending her money, she's going to need your financial support sooner or later. Keep in mind her actions when you decide what to do. My father-in-law and mother-in-law, both in their late 60s, are facing financial difficulties. Father-in-law is still working while mother-in-law is dependent on him. Unfortunately, father-in-law's gambling habit has left them with significant debt and no assets. Unlike some countries, there's no government system in place to support the elderly in our country. To assist them, we've been paying half of their monthly rent and helping with their food and healthcare expenses. Father-in-law constantly borrows money without repaying it, but we only lend what we can afford to lose. As father-in-law is getting older, and we are unsure how much longer he can continue working. Moreover, my wife's elder sister and brother are also in similar financial situations due to their own poor choices and habits, making it unlikely they can provide assistance. As the only person in our families with a stable job and good income, my in-laws and wife are pressuring me to fully fund my parents-in-law's retirement. While I sympathize with their predicament, I am hesitant to shoulder this ongoing liability of taking care of them until the end of their lives. They suggest that expenses would significantly decrease if we let them move into our house. However, based on our past experience of living with them for a few months, it did not work well due to our contrasting lifestyles and their desire to exert influence over our decisions. Additionally, their poor hygiene habits, such as using our personal items instead of their own, and the use of inappropriate language, create further concerns. I've expressed to my wife that neither option, financially supporting them nor having them live with us, is acceptable to me. In the past, I once paid off all their debts so they could start afresh without the burden of debt. Within a month, they found themselves back in debt. I reminded my wife that their financial struggles are not a result of my actions, but of their own choices. Moreover, I do not believe I owe them anything based on past circumstances, whether in terms of financial or physical support. I don't consider myself responsible for their well-being. My wife raises the question of whether we should let them starve in their old age. She also points out that my parents are not financially struggling, so I may not fully understand her feelings. However, I've explained to her the need to prioritize our own family's future and financial stability. My income is the sole source of our family, and if anything were to happen to me or my stable income, we would be left with nothing. We currently have no savings for retirement or our children's education. Continuing to give everything we have would eventually lead us down the same path as her parents. Despite my explanations, they persist in guilt-tripping me. While I recognize that I am not obligated to help them, their constant pressure makes me feel like I am enjoying a plate full of good food, while others in the room are starving. Am I the a-hole? You are enjoying a plate full of good food because you don't have gambling debt and you haven't essentially thrown your food into a black hole. If your wife wants to support her parents, then she can get a job and donate her salary. Do not let these people move in with you. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I think you need to reposition this somewhat with your wife. You already are helping them and have helped them extensively, paying half their rent, food, and medical needs, plus other instances of loans that have gone unpaid are the reason they are doing as well as they are now. And one could argue doing these things steps into enabling territory. Point being, you've been generous and supportive, and it's wildly inappropriate for anyone to pressure you for more. Hold firm, both on the monetary burden and the suggestion that they should move in with you. There are other answers. Bring yourselves to couples therapy if you cannot get to the same page. It's okay to have different perspectives, but her ganging up on you with your in-laws is unfair. Not the a-hole. If she would like to support her parents, she can get a job and start paying their way. She might understand your point of view, if that happens, a little better too.